No drinking in here. Huh? Do they need help? This is what we have to say to that. Put your mask on. Tom, please, mask. Thank you. However silly the rules are the rules, and we're going to respect them. Huh? מסכות בבקשה. אני כמעט ושמעתי אותך. לא עד כדי כך. All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We see people are coming in now. We're going to give them a couple minutes because we're not going to have any drinking in the room. So you please keep your masks on in here. There you go. Now, Lonnie, smash the glass against the wall. I'm sorry, folks. These are the rules that we set down. When things are green, you can do what you want with your faces. But when things turn yellow and orange, we're hiding ourselves from the world. Okay. So, everybody's ready already. So I want to welcome the class of the leadership program and of the rabbinical program from the International Institute for Secular Humanistic Judaism, sitting over here, and they'll be joining me in just a moment to light candles. Welcome them from all over the place, from the Northwest, from the Midwest, from the Southwest, from the Northeast, and the West, and I'm just naming directions. I know where some of you are from, but I don't know where all of you are from. Northwest. I said Northwest. I started with Northwest. All the directions, and in the middle, pointing in and pointing out. Anyway, you're welcome. I had the pleasure of spending a little time with them the other day, and it's just a really great group of people. And Miriam Jarris has been the instructor for the course. Rabbi Miriam Jarris is here. Just to remind you all of the upcoming schedule, next week we will be celebrating the bar mitzvah of Nico Tabachman. Many of you know the creeds and the Tabachman, so you're all welcome. Friday night, the mitzvahs are open to the whole community. And the following week, we'll be celebrating the bar mitzvah of Tommy Zeldis. Some of you knew the Zeldis seniors who moved to Florida like 10 years ago, so I never got to know them. But Steve and Jerry and their 4 children, one of whom I had the pleasure of naming, the other 3 presiding over their bar mitzvah. And then the following week, in cooperation with Jews for a Secular Democracy, so we're going to publicize it nationally, I'll be speaking about Christian nationalism ascendant. And I know that our special guest tonight, our friend and congregant, Mike Whitty, will be touching on some of those issues too. This is obviously going to be something we're going to be talking about a great deal in this country as we see these somewhat horrific and very frightening changes. Anyway, we are about to light Shabbat candles, and I will begin with the first slide. Arthur, please. As these Shabbat candles that we are about to light give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. I'd like to invite the students from the Leadership and Rabbinical Program, along with Rabbi Jarris, who will collectively light our Shabbat candles. You can use the match and put it into the flame. It's a little easier than that gun. Baruch haor ba'olam, Shalom, Shalom, Baruch Haor, Baruch Haor, Shabbat. As Miriam takes the picture, our readers tonight are Bob Citron, Veronica Zador, Susie Friedman, Sue Citron, Deborah Schenker-Ernst, and Lonnie Fleischer, and we'll begin with Bob.
Shabbat Shalom. Let us endeavor to find still moments, quiet spaces within to refresh ourselves, moments without ceaseless questions or inner debates, when we meditate only on goodness. Let us endeavor to nurture courage, recalling moments of strength. Let us remember days of fortitude and the power that we found. Let us endeavor to turn to light, to feel the warmth of a loving touch, our faces and fingers outstretched, alive, alive to each other.
B'nei Shabbat nikabla, nikabla, le'adoni. Likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla, nikabla. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom u'menucha. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom u'menucha.
May all who walk the paths of righteousness, who work for the good of humanity and hear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, who take the friendless into their homes, see the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest. Shabbat Shalom. Neil deGrasse Tyson wrote, "We are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe automatically. There's as many atoms in a single molecule of your DNA as there are in the stars of the galaxy. We are, each of us, a little universe." Carl Sagan put it this way, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself."
Shabbat Shalom. We live in two worlds, the one that is and the one that might be. Nothing is ordained for us, neither delight nor defeat, neither peace nor war. Life flows and we must freely choose. We can, if we will, change the world that is into the world that may come to be. Our ancestors expressed this in words that have come down to us through the millennia. Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from deceitful speech. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Let justice dwell in the wilderness, righteous in the fertile fields, and make that justice roll down as waters, righteousness as a mighty stream.
sing the song of people join in understanding and respect, the song of life's wonders, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
In this community where we find strength and common purpose, we turn our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. Tonight, our well wishes are extended to these members of our community and their loved ones, to Joe Gaydon and Rabbi Peter Schweitzer. And if there's someone whom you're thinking about, whose name you'd like to share, starting over here, yes. Thank you. Lonnie, you have somebody? Ruthie Goldman. Anybody on this side? May all who suffer know they're not alone. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits. May the source of strength that dwells so deep within us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Shalom. May those in need of healing know refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. When I'm struggling with the fear of my own death, or with grief over the death of someone I love, what comforts me most isn't philosophies or ideas. It's the presence of someone who loves me, just sitting with me silently, Thomas, letting me feel what I have to feel, not trying to fix it or make it go away, but simply being with me while I feel it. It's the presence of someone who loves me, letting me know that I'm not alone. And by their presence, being part of the foundation I can come back to when the feelings pass.
our thoughts turn to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Tonight our congregation continues to mourn this week's death of Edward Broida, Aleva Shalom, even as we observe the yahrzeits of these members of our community and of their loved ones, of Sam Calvin, Bill Ernst, Joseph Bernard Klein, Alexander Joseph Kozak, Ariana Kuffler, Frida Kurland, Hannah Remnick, and Jack Ross. If there's someone whom you're thinking about who is not on our list, once again, you feel free to share the names. We'll start over here. Anybody on this side? Over in the middle here? Go ahead. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, Miriam. Gail. Did we miss anyone at all? We say, Yehi Zichram Livracha, may memories of them provide blessing, by which we mean that as we go through life in their absence, it is only through memory that we can find a sense of comfort. If you can do so now comfortably, please rise for our humanistic interpretation of Kaddish. We recite together, Nit Gadal v'nit Kadash beruach ha'adam. Let us dignify and ennoble all people in the spirit of our shared humanity. Let us acclaim the preciousness of life. Let us show gratitude for life by approaching it with reverence. Let us embrace the whole world, even as we wrestle with its parts. Let us, each in our own way, take up our share in serving the world and in seeking truth. May our commitment to life help us to strengthen healing of spirit and peace of mind. May justice and peace permeate and comfort the house of Israel and all those who dwell on earth. And let us say, Ken Yehi, may it be so. Please be seated. For those of you who are joining us after some time, I want to once again acknowledge and welcome our brand new Director of Music, Joseph Palazzolo. Thank you for the beautiful accompaniment this evening. And thank you all who have welcomed him in as part of our congregational family. It is a great honor for me to once again welcome Dr. Mike Whitty to this bema. Mike is one of my humanist heroes. He's a scholar and a gentleman, too. I was first introduced to Mike, I won't forget it, it was in that back library, the Milan Library. They took me back there, I think it might have been my first or second week here, and they said, we want you to meet Dr. Detroit. And I swear I thought I was going to go meet a DJ. Like I thought this was the guy from Motown. Oh, this is exciting. Now, you weren't the guy from Motown per se, but it was still exciting, and it began a beautiful relationship that I'm very grateful for. And it's a name that very well suits him. He is a local legend, a longtime University of Detroit at Mercy business professor, Birmingham resident, together with his wonderful wife Gail, stalwart member of our congregation. Mike likes to joke that he has thoroughly, and I will agree, thoroughly flunked retirement. You get an F grade on that, but the reward has been for us because it's been in the name of serving as a kind of prophet in your own time, in his own time, because among other things, he is a committed futurist and has a talent for forecasting trends, using data, using his knowledge and his experience, which served him well as a researcher and scholar and continues to make him a sought-after speaker. Mike puts the humanist focus on the needs of human beings, that we should live in dignity. He has been a social justice warrior before that term came into vogue, marching from Detroit to Selma and many other places with the likes of Walter Reuther, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and so many others. He's been outspoken, too, in his advocacy of responsible drug policy reform, one of the leaders in our effort to legalize cannabis in this state and to do it in a sensible way. In addition to many of his voluntary speaking engagements, he had a renowned career, as I mentioned, at the University of Detroit, served as a lecturer. I'm not even going to list all the universities. Almost every university in Michigan, universities out west in San Francisco. He was acting director of labor and urban affairs for the University of Minnesota, many teaching positions. He has spoken and written extensively about the dangers of hate and bigotry and extremism for many, many years. We were talking beforehand about some of the things that he had written, some of the things that he showed me that were nearly identical, going back to Pat Buchanan, the original extremist Catholic Christian nationalist. He is a social philosopher and a social activist of the first degree, and it is always my pleasure and my honor to welcome him to join us on this Bima tonight.
I guess I could say I'm a 60s civil rights guy, and I have fond memories of being in Selma, Alabama with Martin Luther King in 1965. And I'm still giving talks on politics and humanistic psychology, which I came upon on the West Coast and I have embraced as a way to bring humanism into my own consciousness and my own self-development and self-care. And I recommend that for those who worry and have a little anxiety about their own lives and the world around us. It's a way to calm down and come to a new reframing of how you live the rest of your life, and it's been very helpful to me. Humanistic psychology is part of my religion, and I have the greatest admiration for our rabbi, who's a bold and progressive thinker in our congregation. I think we should be very appreciative of him. Let's give him a round of applause. I do have a PhD in history, and I have a long-time interest in American nativism, the shadow side of America from the Salem witch trials of 1619, and sadly, the shadow side of American religion, beginning with the Puritans. And this week's Times has a big story. I clipped it and posted it on that chair, dealing with the rise of Christian fundamentalism taking over mainstream politics and the Supreme Court and one of our major parties. So there have been previous stories in the Times about the fusion of religion, the far-right evangelical and Christian nationalist, white nationalist segment, right in the insurrection assault on the Capitol, people out waving Jesus 2020 flags. So there was a story about the fusion of bigotry of the Christian fundamentalists with the militia extremists of the far right, fueling the fear, resentment, hate, and bullying that is so commonplace now. I'm not letting the media off the hook for a minute. I do have a column I published in Humanistic Judaism that's out in the hall and at the end of the program. I'd love you to take a copy of it. It's very short, but I'll just read a quote from a member of the House panel, Jamie Raskin, to capture one of my points for tonight. He says, when you look at it historically, liberal and progressive parties generally don't defeat authoritarian and fascist assaults on democracy by themselves. Mr. Raskin said, where democracy survives, it's because the center-right and the center-left come together to defend it. So, as a futurist and a forecaster, I am alarmed, but I'm hopeful. And I think that while Raskin focuses well on domestic terrorism, and even today's Times has a column by David Brooks, who I thought was a libertarian Republican and a staunch Republican, he has deep concerns that things will get worse in the short run. And I can give you the worst case scenario, that DeSantis is even meaner than Trump and has been more extremist on public health and COVID, the school system in Florida, gay rights and other minority groups. He will be facing us in 24, and it could get worse in the short run. In the long run, I see a happy ending, a humanist worldview that becomes widely accepted globally, and indeed something the grandchildren will benefit from. We just have to do our fair share in the balance of our lives for the sake of the kids and the grandkids. So it may take a decade or two to undo the wave of damage of this Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decisions in 3 cases, knocking down separation of church and state. That could bring us to theocracy. I have a book up here by a Republican author on the dangers of theocracy, written in 2005, prophesying that there were too many preachers and we were headed toward a theocracy. So we have the Supreme Court decisions on the church and state. We have it on abortion. We have it on environment. And next year there'll be decisions on union rights, affirmative action, voting rights, gay rights, and probably in 24 a second attempt at a coup. Particularly if you can control the state legislature and you turn the powers of the Secretary of State running elections over to the partisan legislature. When 2/3 of the states are red, you can shift the electoral college. You can do all kind of monkey shines. So the control of elections is a very big deal. And we have our Secretary of State up on the chopping block here in Michigan. So my messages tonight are essentially 5. Humanism over hate. We have a role in the long haul for our life legacy, what our kids and grandkids will remember of us after we're gone. We have to be quite frank to say that the Christian right is bad medicine. There are too many preachers. And the Puritans began it all with the Salem witch trial, so it isn't just fresh and new and shocking. And we have to live out our humanist values to complete our life legacy and bring out the vote, especially young people and non-voters of all ages. And lastly, we have to develop our humanistic psychology to bring out more of our loving kindness, our optimism, our trust in ourself and society. Not only loving and forgiving ourselves and healing ourselves, but being healers in the world. Not having doubt, not having pessimism, eradicating our negative qualities and cultivating our virtues. That's a sure way for success in life and self-realization. And it will help bring our inner peace that we all need more of, and it will make us peacemakers, and we'll have more outer peace, ending hatred, violence, and extremist politics. So let me just read something from a new friend of mine, George W. Bush, if I may. Bush likened right-wing extremists to the militants he sent Americans to fight in Afghanistan. They are children of the same foul spirit. It is our continuing duty to confront them. So much of our politics has become a naked appeal to anger, fear, and resentment. So we don't want to be caught up in anger, fear, or resentment. We want to ease up on our fears. We want to work on our anxieties. Take a nice bath tonight, or take a bike ride, or a walk, or a yoga class, or hold a grandchild. You know, enjoy, see the silver lining, and count your blessings. And we don't have to return fear and anger with our own fear and anger. And we don't have to go at things negatively. We can state our values in a positive, affirming way. And we can look for common ground, and we can try to adhere to a concept that I use as a street language, a live and let live future, until we can get to that new enlightenment, a humanism that embraces our oneness and our common journey of life. That we're all in this together. We all live in a yellow submarine, if I can use the expression. I think there's some people old enough to remember that song, "We All Live in a Yellow Submarine." Thank you. Speak out in your own way as a wise elder and incorporate the humanistic beliefs such as agency, social altruistic morality, freedom, equality, naturalism, letting nature, letting the summer, letting your parks and your lakes and the beauty of the Michigan Midwest. Let nature be a healer and let it be a helper to you. And let human flourishing be something that you spread generously. because life is in this world, not in the afterlife. So it requires individual dignity and human values and reason, and science, and the humanities, and a focus on helping people live well with happiness and goodwill and justice. Happiness, goodwill to others, and justice. And achieve your own personal growth that way. And always try to focus on reason. There's a good magazine called Reason Magazine, and we're talking about rational thought. You can bring rational thought positively, gently, and in a kind way to say, to use the great philosopher from Los Angeles, Rodney King, can't we all just get along? You know, we have to work at diplomacy. It's nice to see what's happening, at least for a few days, in Israel today, where everybody's happy, everybody's holding their hands and hugging each other. If we could practice that on a daily basis, the world would be okay. We wouldn't have the war that's spoken here, and the phrases of our service tonight talk about peacemaking and peace. So we're really talking about our own personal growth, but living out our values in civic and community life as well, and that will help us make the world a better place. And we can combine the promotion of private with civic virtue, humane values, and dignity. We want that for ourselves and our loved ones. We should treat others, we should treat the stranger as our neighbor. Who is our neighbor? Everybody sharing the human experience on this planet. We're all family. We're all in this together. We occasionally have family feuds, but we are all family, and we go through the same life cycle experiences. We're breathing, we need the oxygen, and we hope the Great Lakes will be here for the grandchildren. We need water too. So tonight is kind of humanistic psychology with a little bit of what I call humanistic psychology applied to civic life or politics. I say reframe things as humanists to be more hopeful and more confident of the future. People will be delighted to hear something hopeful and optimistic. You'll be surprised. Try that on your best friends. And they'll say, how can you be so optimistic? How can you be so hopeful? The world badly needs that because there's plenty of bad news. Shame on the media, both liberal and conservative, for constantly bringing us scary and depressing information. Where is the good news network? Where is soupy sales, to quote Fran Shore? Where is soupy sales now that we really need the guy? You know what I mean? So if we can remind ourselves and others that we are moderates defending cherished values, a multicultural world, a nation of immigrants. We've adopted immigrant families in this congregation. The nations of the world need to practice that because all the nations are multicultural today with immigration and world movement, technology and airplanes and boats. So we're all family on the same journey. We need to have a live and let live approach. A lot of the work of the Anti-Defamation League as far as fighting hate and extremism is good work. Because when we look at hate and extremism, we often find with a little magnifying glass, and sometimes it doesn't even take a magnifying glass, we find anti-Semitism zigging and zagging its way through all these movements. But most importantly, we are moderates facing extremism. So we should have a cry from the heart for moderation and acceptance. And kindness, not meanness. I'll be bold enough to say loving kindness, because we all have that within us. You know about your children, your first child, the family, the grandkids. We know about love. We're humans. So if we got up with that attitude and that mantra of loving kindness, we would make a difference in our own health and our longevity, our spirit and our psyche, and yes, we would influence people around us. And if we made the words loving and kind, maybe a few people extra would hear, and it would touch that aspect of them, the goodness within them. So we share a common foe, sadly, in the far right and the Christian right, and we have to form broader coalitions with our natural allies to create a bulwark against a coming disaster, as David Brooks captured in an op-ed piece in Today's Times. We might all contribute to being truth tellers, combating misinformation ranging from separation of church and state to anti-Semitism and all the hatreds, not to mention attacks on public health, education, teachers, elections, past and future, all institutions, democracy itself. How can we get out from under this? We don't want to get caught napping as we lose democracy, and we end up being something that we never imagined we could be. Some type of a fusion between indoctrination by technology and media and religion. You could have a techno-religious fascist state that would slip up on people because they think TikTok is harmless and it's just something for the kids to play with. It's a dangerous plaything. We've introduced something that has empowered people to become Mussolini or Napoleon just because they have a laptop. You know, that's really quite a big historical development. So I guess I would like to say that, of course, there's the Supreme Court decisions, but behind that is theology of the 5 Catholic members of the Supreme Court, or 6 Catholic members. And it's a battle for the future. It's a battle of ideas. It's a philosophic battle as well as a bread and butter economic and materialist experience, which we understand is part of a secular understanding of reality. But the battle for the future, we are called as humanists to be concerned with the world, have a legacy that hangs somehow onto humanism as a visionary proposition or a visionary philosophy. It comes from the Enlightenment. It comes from the arts, and the arts are still, we love it. We love culture and the arts. We love Joseph Palazzolo's piano playing. Where is Joseph? Thank you. All right. Yes, so the human community needs to incorporate more aspects of humanism, particularly with misinformation, reason, and facts. Good Lord, what about the use of a university degree if you send the child to school and they come out into a world that rejects reason and facts and brushes aside an expensive and ever increasingly expensive university education? Besides including a live and live future, we have to have faith in human evolution and higher consciousness. The labor movement used to call it class consciousness. That's materialism. That's Marxism. But higher consciousness is an evolutionary scientific concept that we as humans can evolve. We had Emerson and the Transcendentalists talk about simple living and high thinking. That could straighten your budget out pretty fast. Simple living and high thinking. That's what humanism suggests as well. We don't have to have a Tesla to be happy. You know, a Ford might make me happy enough. I can settle for my Ford Fusion. Humanism can prevail over hate. A moderate right and a moderate left in coalition can defeat extremism. The Christian right or Christian nationalism is too unloving and mean. I think love trumps hate, and hate won't win. And humanism is a good frame because our philosophy is both futuristic and optimistic. We can mount successful values based on a response to the right and look at targeted groups as potential allies. Secular society is an ally. Separation of church and state, as Supreme Court rulings and the religious right are countered by Americans United for separation of church and state, People for the American Way, the American Civil Liberties Union, the Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, and most of Judaism, by and large, and the liberal wing of all the religions. So alliance with religious liberals, Unitarians, and the liberal wing of all the major religions would be part of a coalition of the center right, center left, live and let live. And then other allies could come from the environmental movement because the planetary future is on the line, and the Supreme Court just rejected the EPA and government regulation. We have abortion rights, 900,000 signatures submitted, the highest in history. So we're here in Michigan having a fall ballot. We need to reach young women and young voters. Try it through your family and friends. Remember, in off-year elections like this fall, older people vote. But younger people drop off, and it's easy for a young idealist to be discouraged by a few early defeats and frustrations. I remember how I was in the civil rights and anti-Vietnam movement. When we're young, if we're idealists, we can be a little too radical for the long arc of history. So we need to get the young people to vote at the same level of senior citizens. That would make a big difference in the way things go, both off-year elections and presidential. Gay rights and civil liberties and voter rights are potential allies because the courts are after all of those topics. The unions are in trouble too. So economic justice is on the table, and we do need ultimately to appeal to the young, a livable future for youth, some hope, but they have to have patience to know it's a lifetime journey of idealism. It's not just, bang, I didn't get this today. I remember asking a young musician who I admired how I could help, and he said, I want it all, and I want it now. Well, sometimes we can't deliver that. We just can't pull that off. So we have to, do our best. And we've got some practical action steps to speak up and engage those who are near us and within our reach, and take back the high ground from the haters, and present ourselves as moderates at the center fighting extremism with an optimistic trust in life and ourselves, calling for success, for acceptance of the human family, especially our neighbors and local communities, as well as a humanistic vision for a global village. I think we're right like the Enlightenment period, where people are widening the frame of living life and looking at the possibilities of a richer, deeper, more profound life. Now that's where theater and the arts come into play, is to help uplift people and expand their sense of the possible. Sometimes as a future, talk about the possible human and the possible future, which we had some of the references in our prayers tonight. Peace. That was repeated 4 or 5 times this evening. Wow. Boy, how do we be more peaceful with ourselves, with our partners, with our household, with our neighbors, with the drivers on the freeway, with the television set, with Fox News? How can we play a game of golf someday with Donald Trump? Can't we all just get along? Anyway, to save democracy and our core values, we need to oppose fear, which fundamentalism and theocracy feed on. They've made holy war first over Islamic fundamentalism, now fellow citizens and neighbors like gays and lesbians and the women's movement, and yet, even more shocking than those old scapegoat targets of the far right, they made war on public health, the schools, the teachers, and science, rejecting vaccines, rejecting medicine itself, distrusting a hospital or every institution. They haven't stopped. There's no institution that they're willing to trust. I mean, that's a critical aspect of being a human being. And not to be always worried and scared. To be a little bit brave, a little bit confident, and discover your courage. Those are good attributes. Those are virtues in most cases. We don't want to be driven by fear and ignorance, which leads to hate and violence, because I don't believe hate will win, believe me. I think if we keep working and do what we can and stay hopeful and organize and try various appeals to convert the confused, the swing voter, the never-Trumpers, it's possible. You just have to just be gentle and thoughtful and be your own judge of what you can do with the balance of your life. And I would also say that, of course, we're defending democracy from theocracy. And there's a book here that touches me very much that was written by a Republican. And he just had 3 issues that concerned him: over-financialization, oil, and theocratic religion. Isn't that interesting? All 3 are at play now. What will the Fed do over financialization? What about oil, natural gas, and the price of gas? And theocracy. We've got our own version of it, and we don't have to go too far back to the Salem witch trials. We can go to Charles Coughlin, here of Detroit's Shrine of the Little Flower at 12 Mile and Woodward. And I found a wonderful book in our library, Radio Priest, Charles Coughlin, father of hate radio. That's still, now it's podcasting and social media, but this is close to home from the New Deal, and when Coughlin used anti-Semitism to attack the banks and Roosevelt and embraced Hitler and the Nazi regime. That's Detroit, 1930s. That's our grandparents' day. That's not so far back. Then we had Joe McCarthy hunting down communists and homosexuals and dividing the Republican Party in the 50s. So we've come right along the bend again of nativism and the shadow side of American history with vigilantism, the militia taking over our state capitol. A guy who is part of that malicious strike against COVID. That was the grounds for them invading the Capitol, COVID, and the governor having to protect human life. He's the front runner for the GOP nomination for governor against Whitmer. So we're close to the edge here, but I'm still optimistic. So we have many causes. The common foe has made targets of meanness and scapegoating. It's an unholy alliance of the religious right and militia extremism, and it's just too extreme. Even our conservative friends should vote against extremism. There are times where you have to abandon your historic allegiances for the sake of a higher frame of holding people in a restrained and moderate process of living their life. I am told time and again when I ask questions about alcohol or even marijuana, and the answer I get from my wisest friends, everything in moderation. Have you heard that phrase? Have you had people tell you, you can have a hamburger once a year, you know, everything in moderation. So that should apply to politics too, shouldn't it? And religion. And I hope it does. Okay, well, they've been at it a long time to get to the high ground that they occupy and have the nerve to attack everything simultaneously. I think you could remember your days of activism, which I hope are still alive, and return to your grassroots and do everything you can to express your core life values, be in it for the long haul. It's a major contribution to our life legacy, especially the kids and the grandkids, the primary August 2nd, the fall election, and curbing extremism and advancing tolerance and turning back hate and bullying, so widespread, scapegoating, and the politics of resentment. We have to be careful we don't fall into that negative quality of resentment. We've got to be a little more forgiving of people who rub our fur the wrong way. We have to be a little more relaxed when someone is trying to provoke us or has provoked us. I had a person who knew I was a big liberal and I was wearing some buttons, and he came into the cafe and said, you shouldn't wear buttons in the cafe, you should take them off. And I was lucky that day, I was in a good spirit. I took my buttons off and put them in my pocket and bowed to him and did not allow it to upset me, to rub my fur the wrong way, and let him get my goat. Have you heard the expression, get my goat? So sometimes we can step aside if we're calm and loving and kind, and we can give ground in many, many cases that we often would bristle at. And someone is mean, and we're going to be mean as a retaliatory, defensive, fear-based gesture. We can be a little bit more in the spirit of nonviolent direct action, Martin Luther King, and other traditions of principled social action that are more loving and remain nonviolent in spirit as well as in action. Well, we've got to try to reduce fear, that's for sure. We've got to try to advance tolerance, and there could be psychological reframing that we could apply to public life. every so often at my age, my sister-in-law just died of cancer at 70. I'm older than that, and I think occasionally that made me think, oh my God, I might die someday too. That thought came into my head. Does that thought ever slide into your head? But what do I do with it? Because of humanistic psychology, I say, live each day, day to day. Appreciate your day. That is death as an advisor to teach us to live and love in the here and now. So you can take a fear thought and translate it into something good for you instead of something that scares you and unsettles you. So I think we can apply that to politics too. Psychological reframing, a lot more education, and cultural exchange where we can get close and understand people and to get more friendly and be friendly with intergroup dialogue, like the Temple's efforts with immigrant families, a higher tolerance for the diversity of our wonderful region, calling for a truce in the cultural wars, and demand that the religious right and Christian right stop being mean. That's not holy at all. And I would require the same thing of the media. I want a good news network here in Detroit. I can't find a good news network at all. And they fan the flames. They let the most extreme person have the biggest coverage. And the kindest, most gentle soul is never in the papers. Now, there's something wrong about that from a media standpoint. We ought to get after journalism and radio television departments at the universities to reframe what they're doing, because the media is the new church, and it's a false god. We can't live by the TV set. We have to live from reason and our own best conscience, and so that's a whole different talk for another day, a media critique, for sure. There's a lot of good human rights codes that we can certainly adhere to as community educators. I like the idea of the possible human and the possible future, one of humanism and loving kindness, where we're shining a light on the path. That way, you can be an elder and speak your truth. That's what I mean when I say you can be a minor prophet in your own time. To put it in plain English, you just are an elder speaking your truth. So let me restate the basic points that I have tried to bring forward here just to conclude. I'm glad to answer any questions. Well, I think humanism triumphs over hate. Humanism, being a human, loving human being triumphs over hate. So that's why I think in the end, after 20 years of work, we will bring it right and have a center right and a center left that can play Ohio State, Michigan without, violence. Just an occasional sports injury, but by and large, we don't have to overdo our differences and hate everybody from Ohio. We've got to love the people from Ohio just as we love the people from the Upper Peninsula. Right. So, humanism over hate, a coalition of moderates. Why don't we seize a good word, moderation? The Christian right is clearly bad medicine, and there's too many preachers, and love triumphs hate, and hate won't win. So that's something you can put in softer terms. And last two thoughts, we need to bring out the vote, inspire the youth to vote, and most of all, live out our humanist values of altruistic morality, freedom, equality, and yes, remember indeed that it is possible that we can have an evolution of humanity that brings us close enough to our common ground more often culturally so that we can live together in a human family and understand that no two of us are the same. It's true that each of us is a minority of one. But we have to get along, so we have to have unity and diversity. And we can only do that by acting locally in our election cycle here in Michigan and thinking globally for peace. Peace in the heart, peace in the family, peace in the neighborhood, peace on the roads, and peace among the nations. And I wish Israel and Joe Biden and everybody else in the entire world the best week they can possibly have. I'm grateful to be here. I'm happy to respond to any thoughts or Tom, go ahead.
Well, anger is in me, but because of what's happening in the courts. But the question I have for you as a futurist, what do you see for 24? Will Donald Trump run again, and will Biden run? And Biden in the paper has negative 62% support. Do you feel, or who do you feel that when out as Democratic?
Well, this is a forecast, and you could hold me to it, and I could be wrong. So it's just a forecast. Forecasting, I sometimes say, is sort of like market research, where they research trends. So I think that we'll probably have a different Democrat running for president in 24, but we have to be as reasonable and as creative and intelligent as we possibly can to pick the alternative to Joe Biden in 24 that can be acceptable to the country. I honestly am worried that we don't have an obvious nominee on the bench or in our stable. I'm humble enough to acknowledge just having a big liberal doesn't get you an electoral college victory. So we may have to, this is a joke, and my wife says I'm not a good comedian at all, but forgive me, Gail, here on this. We've been married 53 years, and she's heard all my jokes. We need somebody like the guy who was the quarterback of the New England Patriots. Yeah, somebody that everybody likes. Somebody says, oh, wow. I'm looking for that person. To be absolutely honest with you, I can't name the person now. I don't think it'll be Joe Biden. For various reasons, I think Joe will find a gracious and decent way at the right time and his own timing to make that graceful. There's nothing wrong with being a one-term president. He's doing all he can. I voted for the guy. But on the other side of the coin is, to be honest with you, now here's a forecast. There's a little more. I think that's a safe forecast that we'll have a different Democrat in 24. The one that's a little more speculative is, although I would like Trump to announce his reelection tomorrow and to do so as quickly as possible, I'd be happy to have him. But I think it'll be DeSantis or Cruz or someone smarter and meaner and more persuasive with less baggage that embarrasses some Republicans. I think a DeSantis could be our next two-term president. With this Supreme Court, the governor of Florida, yes. And he's been on the cover of Newsweek, and it's not any breakthrough news story. It's been mentioned as the leading guy, and if Trump stumbles, he'll probably be the next president. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, I'll be very brief on this and turn it back to the rabbi here. Get with Howard's point. It's very well taken, the issue of power. You can write checks from home. You can do phone banking from home. You can do texting from home. If you have young, energetic friends, they can do the door knocking and the walking the streets. But we can write the checks. We can text and phone bank, and be sure you get friends an absentee ballot, and they vote in the August 2nd primary, and that we get people out in the off year. That's what we and people like us can do to get at Howard's point of building up a little more muscle so we're not bullied and intimidated and slandered. So I think we can, with a little vision, gain some muscles and have ability to mitigate our short-run damage and come out with a Hail Mary pass and a touchdown and a happy ending and a humanistic future. Thank you very much. I'm all set.
Well, I'm glad we solved all that tonight, and we're ready to go. I have to tell you, I don't think Biden's stepping aside, and I am very certain that Trump is going to declare his candidacy, because he's irrelevant without being a candidate, and he will not allow himself to be irrelevant. So that's my prediction. But for what it's worth, none of us know, except maybe him, and we don't know what he knows. Thank you guys so much for participating tonight. Thank you again, Mike, for your inspirational words. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm supposed to have loving kindness in my heart towards these people, and someday I'll figure it out. But that night is not tonight. Once again, thanks to David Weeks for running our streaming, to Arthur for running the slideshow, and to our new Director of Music, Joseph Palazzolo. We will conclude with this beautiful song that has 12 names. May we know peace as we go on our way. May we be guided by love. May we be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Shalom. Abide in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way to everyone. May this be our blessing. Shalom. 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 May this be our blessing. Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Oneg will be outside to the left.